And good evening. It is week 4 of Friday Night Drive here on Shaw Local as we are starting to get finals coming in and also games in the second half all across the state of Illinois. And we will keep you abreast of all of the coverage and kind of sort of react in live time and real time as we go through another Friday night of high school football across the state of Illinois. My name is Matt Rodewald. Glad you're with us here for week 4. Steve Soucie is with us. He stayed out of the rain today. How are you, sir?
Oh, getting along. It looks like we've got a couple of really interesting games kind of coming down to the wire right here. First and foremost, IC Catholic just scored on a 2-point conversion. Looks like there's a little under 5 minutes to play in that one, and IC Catholic and Nazareth tied at 21 in that one.
Okay, so we got a lot of games going down to the end, not so much a lot going down to the wire. I would argue that's the best game we have so far. By the way, just went final. Unity over SJO. That's on the road, by the way, 40-10. So the Unity squad is pretty good. So we got finals coming in. We're kind of watching this in real time, so we always do here. What's your headline right now, other than the fact that we're watching IC Catholic, but I think Brother Rice and Loyola tops the list for me to start things off.
Yeah, I watched a good chunk of that game, and it felt like almost from the get-go, Brother Rice was in control of that game. Got a couple of touchdown runs from C.J. Gray in the second half to kind of open that thing up. That was a 7-6 game at halftime. So obviously, definitely a situation where Brother Rice kind of imposed their will in the second half. And I'll be honest, from looking at it, Brother Rice looked like the significantly superior football team in that one. I didn't know how I felt like coming into that one, but I definitely felt like that was a game that Brother Rice could win. And they certainly proved that intuition was on point.
Got a lot of finals right now. We're going to keep going through them. If you were at a game, if you got to deal with some rain tonight, certainly want to hear from you. I did tonight. I'm in my office because I'm down the street from Central High School in Rocket Hill, Prairie Ridge, and good old Central of Burlington. The atmosphere was top-notch, but Seuss, Prairie Ridge did Prairie Ridge things, and Luke Vanderwaal is an outstanding kid. Had a chance to say hello to him right before the game, and he was great. But I would argue that Prairie Ridge and the Wolves played their most complete game to date. They had other weapons involved, and so they're not going anywhere. Final on the road to spoil the Rockets' homecoming 28-7, and they were in control from the very start. So a very good, very complete performance from Prairie Ridge tonight. And, the Central Rockets, it was one of those first time on the stage in the regular season. Not quite there yet. That's okay. And I think both of those teams are going to be doing some damage now with the way the schedule goes the rest of the way, and could be in for multiple weeks in the postseason.
Yeah, it definitely looked like that. I had that up on one of my screens for most of the night until it looked like Prairie Ridge had kind of broken away and taken control of that contest. So I saw via video a lot of the same things that you saw. It really looked like Prairie Ridge. You're right. Put together, definitely a complete effort in that one. A really good sign for them. And now you kind of look at their schedule remaining. They've already cleared, several of the most substantial hurdles for them. So now, it becomes a little bit of, keeping focused, fine tuning some things, and keeping it on task.
Joliet Catholic and Marist tied at 17. There's 10 minutes left in that one, so we thank Brian Stone for that one. Also, Normal and Kankakee going down to the wire. Which one are you watching right now about as we're getting close to the end of some of these games? I'm going to look at some finals. What are you seeing at the moment?
I've got that Normal community game up on the screen right now. I'm not exactly sure what the score is right now, to be totally honest with you. They do not have
last check, 6 minutes left, 17-14 Normal in front, and this was about 3 minutes ago.
Okay, so Kankakee's got the ball around midfield on that one. Also, obviously, keeping an eye on that IC Catholic Nazareth game. Clock is hard to read on that screen, but I think it's saying 2:47 or maybe 3:47. Still tied at 21 in that one as well.
By the way, we're going to the fourth quarter in Lake Forest. You and I are going to have some fun with this one. Zion Benton with the ball, down by 4. They've been leading a good chunk of this one. The ZBs are 3-0, trying to get to that fourth win. They just did a halfback pass, and they're going to go in for a touchdown to start the fourth quarter. Are you kidding me? Wow, as I'm watching it live, That's a double pass touchdown, and the CBs go in front. I'm going to watch the replay real quick. It's a lateral to the right, and it's absolutely perfectly executed because the receiver held in and then took off at the last second. Then he out-sprinted, and a great block that came from the other side. If you watch the replay, I'm going to see if I can find it. There is a downfield block that's outstanding that sprung in the last 15 yards. So ZB's in front. We'll see if they can hang on. What else you got right now?
Right now, I mean, those are the primary ones that I'm focusing on. Cultivating through some finals. I think it's going to be a weird night because there were a lot of lightning delays, weather delays.
Yeah.
So you might have some games that you're looking at and you're saying, why is that game in the second quarter? That's why. So there were some games that started late. The other ones that I'm kind of keeping an eye on right now, the last time I saw Lincoln Way West had tacked on a field goal and led that game over Lincoln Way Central 17-12. I haven't seen that one in a while, but that's definitely one that I was keeping an eye on. And I don't know if that I'm seeing the score on the crawl, but it looked like Geneva was handling Wheaton Warrenville South pretty handily in that one.
That's a surprise.
Another one that is early in the third quarter, as far as I know, Montini is currently leading Fenwick 14-10.
Zion Benton, by the way, that block that I'm championing, they called an illegal block in that. That's incorrect. That was wrong. So basically, not a touchdown, but they flipped the field. So they still have the ball, down by 4. It's the first play of the fourth quarter. We got a long way to go in that one. Here are the finals I do have, and I'm just going to roll through them. You have them on the screen. We want everyone to jump in on the chat, so please do that. Let us know what you see. We're also going to have recaps from around the state and all of our reporters that are everywhere. But first, before I get to those finals, how about some highlights from what we saw tonight, week 4, across the state of Illinois?
Jet motion to the right, Hatchinger. He's going for the ball. Again, single man coverage out there. They fake jet motion. It's given
Your cool. You're good.
Inline pass complete to number 23, Gavin.
Those are the highlights from week 4 so far. By the way, the Zion Benton game, 35-yard pass over the shoulder backside. They initially called it a touchdown, then said he's out at the 1. So they're trying to punch it in. Zion Benton fumbles into the end zone. Lake Forest gets on it. Now they're out at the 20. The Scouts have it. This is not ZB's night, not by a long shot. Which is, I don't like how this is going. And they're just a minute and a half into the fourth, so we got a long way to go there. But good lord, some finals real quick, just downstate as I take a peek about what's going on. Williamsville 64-26 over Pittsfield. Pontiac with a 28-7 win over IVC. Tuscola 39-0 over Clinton. U-High down in Normal shutting out Lincoln 47-0. North Mac over Litchfield 40-7, and Sandburg over Mattia Valley 24-7. DeKalb a shutout win over Stagg 41-0. The Barbs needed that. Lincoln Way East over Lockport tonight 49-14, and York shutting out Leiden by a score of 56-0. What are you watching right now, Mr. Seuss?
Yeah, still keeping an eye on IC Catholic right now. I cannot read that clock.
I can't either. I'm looking at it too, and I have no idea.
I think
if it's down to the final minute.
Yes, I do think we're under a minute here. Looks like the ball is around the 25-yard line. IC Catholic in, Nazareth in IC Catholic territory. Kankakee, on the other hand, let's take a peek over there. That ball looks like it is Kankakee ball, if I'm not mistaken, around the 25-yard line. Another situation where I can't fully read the clock. I think there's 2:28 left in that game. But I apologize. It now looks like Normal has the ball.
Yeah, we're gonna sort, and this is what we do. We sort this out and figure it out, and we appreciate everyone that lets us know on the chat too. So if you're watching or wherever you are, let us know. SHG over Quincy Notre Dame 42-26. That one final tonight. St. Charles North 34-12 over Wheaton North. That is about 20 seconds left in that one. So St. Charles North should go to 4-0 on the season. You've got IC Catholic on. I'm watching Zion Benton and Lake Forest for some reason. It's like, you know what it feels like. I hate to say it, and it's like watching the MAC on Tuesday. I'll watch this. Yeah, I want to see how this goes. I'm sorry. I want to see if the Zion Benton ZBs can get to 5 wins. I'm all in on the ZB trade. Marion is rolling up Althoff, by the way. There are 9 minutes left in that one. That's at Althoff, by the way, a 56-24 score. Clifton Central's pulled away from Oakwood. It's 35-14 now. They've just started the fourth quarter there, and I think Clifton just went in, and now they're wearing black tonight, Seuss. That's just kind of throwing me off a little bit. That's why.
That's an alternate. They do that sometimes.
What do you think of the blacks? Because Central tonight, the Central Rockets did black tonight.
I kind of like them. They're nice.
Yeah.
Yep.
See, and you know what helps when you're watching the screen here? The black with the white numbers. Now, my Central, they have the black with the blue numbers, and I'm not sure that's when you get to the postseason, you can actually wear those. I'm not really sure. That's an NFHS thing from about 6 years ago. Seneca did beat Genoa Kingston 35-28. They got a late touchdown that was meaningless to most to make that a one-score game. And that's really kind of the games we're watching at the moment. Just kind of keep scrolling to see if I can get some finals. You saw Dundee Crown with a 16-0 lead on Hampshire. You know what? Dundee Crown's going to get some people, I think. Who do you think they can get one team this year in that league where, like, because of how, I hate to say it, I don't want to call it weak, but it doesn't feel like it's dominant like we've seen, where there might be some plateauing with that league.
Yeah, I definitely think it's possible, and I think they've done enough this year to where if they do it well, there's a massive celebration going on right now in the ice.
You're watching that? I'm going back to it too. Let me see what it is.
Naz is celebrating.
Is that a 3-point? It's a field goal. So
the field goal. Okay, I did not see the field goal go up. It's good. And they are now leading 24-21 in that game.
So Naz with the lead, is that correct?
There's a 7 on the scoreboard with time. I don't know if that's 7 seconds or more than that. But
we will keep an eye on that. Let's see, as we're kind of just, again, what are the implications of this if this holds up, say, Nazareth with a win?
You know, Nazareth, once again, this puts them in a pretty good situation, getting them to 3-1. I talked about this earlier in the week. For me, I felt like this was a game that Nazareth was the favorite coming in. It was a good opportunity for IC Catholic to show how legitimate they are, because they're 3-0 out of the box, but their schedule in the non-con wasn't all that domineering. So how close are they to being in the elite group? I think this tells us they're pretty darn close, because they jumped out to a 13-0 lead in this game. Nazareth did come back, and it looks like they're going to get them here. But if you would have told me before the game that IC Catholic would control this game at some point, I probably would have said I don't know about that. I think this is a pretty talented IC group. Just doesn't have a lot of experience and a lot of fairly young players at key positions. So that's been pretty interesting to see. A score final that I just saw in the crawl that I want to talk about a minute down here.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sycamore with a 27-22 win over Rochelle. That is a game that I felt like was really, really important for Sycamore.
Thought it's huge. Yeah.
I thought this was one that I really felt like they kind of had to have. That one hurts for Rochelle, though. After that loss to Lena, now all of a sudden they're kind of in a little bit of a touchy spot moving forward because, this was a game that I felt like either one of them kind of needed it pretty bad. I thought Sycamore needed it more, and they did get it. But, moving forward in the Interstate 8, as we all know, kind of chaotic, and it really looks like, and we still haven't seen for sure, Canelan with another big win tonight.
Yeah, they were rolling.
A good Canelan football team.
I agree, I'm looking forward to seeing them week 9 when Althoff comes up here to see them, and it's an early start, so I'll get a chance to go see that. By the way, Joliet Catholic just picked off a Marist pass as they were going in. They're tied at 17 with 2:10 to go, and so they're still tied. And you talk about a game that people need to win. That's an absolute must-have for either one of those teams. Stanford band play for IC Catholic did not happen, so that's a final, I think. Waiting for the flooding on the field. And is it done on your end? Your stream is a little quicker than mine.
I'm showing a replay of this last play.
Because they had the hook and ladder portion right, but everyone stayed home.
Yeah.
And that's how you stop that, especially when you're doing it at this point.
And then I believe that's it.
Bishop Mack, by the way, 75 again. They'd put 75 on Chicago Christian, 75-0. Bradley Bourbonnais, a win over St. Mary's down in St. Louis. You didn't know what to think going into that one, if I recall correctly. Your thoughts now?
Quick correction: they actually played that game at Milliken.
They did. Okay,
they met halfway. But,
that's right. I do remember that. Yes.
Yeah, but basically. I thought that was a pretty solid win for Bradley. That was the first time this season that I felt like the defense got tested because at one point that was a 14-14 game. Bradley slowly inched away, but it was kind of the first time somebody threw something at that Bradley defense that has been really, really good over the course of the first 3 games of the season. Still a solid showing. Good win for them. Puts them at 4-0, which is exactly obviously where they want to be.
Lena Winslow, 38-0 at Dakota tonight, 49-0 for Richmond Burton over Harvard. Mercer County went down to Riverdale over in Port Byron. And let's see, what else we got? Macomb over Bureau Valley, 42-16. Forreston at Morrison, that's a 36-21 win for the Cardinals. Canelan the final over Ottawa, 56-7. You saw the Sycamore score. You talked about that. Winnebago winner at Rockford Lutheran, 53-12. Spring Valley Hall, 18-15 over Sherrard. Belvedere North went to Boyle and put up a good thumping on the Titans tonight, 40-7. Was watching that for a little bit. Hersey shutting out Niles West, 56-0. Stevenson over Mundelein. Those Mustangs can't quite get there, 21-7 the score in that one. Warren with an easy one at Waukegan, 51-0. We go downstate, Cahokia over Carbondale, 52-12. Centralia, 42-6 at Granite City. Johnston City, our friends from Johnston City, a winner over El Dorado. I pronounced it right. 36-6. Let's see. Nashville, 57 tonight for Nashville against Anna Jonesboro. Breeze Central recovering with a 49-0 win over Freeburg. Mater Dei, 52-21 at Harrisburg. Carterville with a shutout win over Heron. I'm touring the southern part of the state right now. Greenville, 48-28 over Hillsboro. And downstate, Mount Carmel over Newton, 32-7 there. What else stands out as you're looking at this? Also, Oak Forest now 4-0. They beat TF North tonight, 47-14.
Yeah, that's that. I was noting that when I was looking through some of the scores that I've seen come in. A good, strong effort for them. I was talking a little bit on the Monday show about that there were a lot of 3-0 teams out there that were playing some 2-1s that I thought would be in trouble or maybe a little bit of an underdog. I'm seeing some of those 2-1s come through exactly like I expected. For example, Sterling beat East Moline United tonight. That was a win that I thought could go either way, but Sterling comes out with that one. Gets themselves in a good situation. So right now, just kind of piecing through some of these finals, seeing what's going on. Haven't really seen anything that has popped off the page right now. This is mostly these games are coming the way that I thought that they would come so far tonight. So, and that is.
I'm watching Joliet Catholic and Marist right now. They're in a timeout. So Joliet Catholic.
Let me interrupt you for a second here,
Go
man.
ahead.
It looks like Kankakee just scored on a huge play, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay, you find that for a second. I'll see if I can pick it up as well. Just as you're looking to kind of sort it out, JCA and Marist.
Pick six. Yeah,
Go ahead.
it is.
Oh, pick six?
Yes,
Okay.
pick six.
All right. So coming out of a timeout, Joliet Catholic and Marist. JCA with the interception, by the way, they started moving, and now they're already at the Marist 23-yard line going in. I don't have the time clock on it, other than I think it's about a minute 33 to go, so about a minute and a half left. They're trying to go in for the score and to take the lead and win the game here. And big play around the end. They get inside the red zone. It's close to the end zone, and it's out inside the 5. JCA gets to about the 3. So there you go. JCA knocking on the door to try and win the game against Marist, and this would put Marist at 0-4, Soucie. That's not good for the Red Hawks.
Yeah, a need game for both of these schools. Obviously, Joliet Catholic entering the game as 0-3, trying to get to 1-3 and keep those things, in place. I mean, you just look at it logically. Joliet Catholic, in my opinion, absolutely had to have this. They got Mount Carmel coming up on the schedule. So, Mount Carmel, a huge favorite in that game. It would take a Herculean effort for them to get a win in that game. So, pretty much have to have that one just to keep things rolling along, just to keep hope alive, to be completely honest with you, because you could 0-4 going into Mount Carmel. Don't like your odds at all. So
JCA down at the 1. I don't know how much time's left. Go ahead.
Yeah, real quick update on Kankakee. They had scored to take a 21-17 lead. Normal Community was trying to answer that score through the pick 6. So now Kankakee leads that game 28-17. Looks like 31 seconds left to play. So that one's pretty much over, I think.
You and I are going in a bunch of different directions during the show, which is typical. So I may have missed this. Lincoln Way West, Lincoln Way Central. Do you have a score? I do.
Last I saw, it was 17-14, I think, in favor of Lincoln. No,
17-12. And it is a final. So Lincoln Way West wins that game over Central at West tonight. Lamont a winner over Tinley Park, 50-13. Richards over Eisenhower, although they gave up the 26 points, it's 40-26 the final there. We mentioned Lincoln Way East, and we have an injury now with Marist, so both teams are on their sidelines. But again, JCA has it at the 1-yard line, trying to punch it in. So we'll see if they can do that. Games in the western suburbs. Let's start there. How about Minooka? Struggling, but they got the win. 10-0 at Joliet West tonight. Not pretty at all.
Well, I found out over the course of the last 24 hours that in last week's game, their starting quarterback was injured to the point where he will miss the rest of the season. So
that makes a difference.
Minooka is adapting to the fact they've got a new guy under center. So, but for Minooka, that's a win. That at this point, you just
honestly, you'll take it like that. Yep.
You try to stack them and see what happens. Moving forward, because they had the early loss to St. Charles North in the final minutes. Things haven't gone the way that they obviously hoped that they would out of the gates here. So getting back to 2-2 for them, big. Moving forward, we'll see what can happen.
ZBs were going in down 4, and they fumbled at the 1-yard line into the end zone. Lake Forest turned that back into a touchdown on the other end. It's 28-17. Now Lake Forest might escape this one. They're under 5 minutes to go in that one. I want to stick, though, in the Southwest Conference and talk about what Josh Welge saw tonight. Yorkville, pretty complete victory over Plainfield East tonight. They did what they had to do, a little bit in the rain, I'm sure. Josh has the recap for us. Let's hear it.
This is Joshua Welge from Friday Night Drive for the final score at Plainfield East. Yorkville 28, Plainfield East 0. Matchup of 3-0 teams coming in. Yorkville set the tempo right off the bat, scoring on their first 2 possessions. They forced 3 and outs on Plainfield East's first 2 possessions. Yorkville's sophomore Jaden Ruth turned a screen pass into a 48-yard touchdown. And then Gavin Geegan had a 34-yard touchdown run, the first of his 2. Jack Beetham later threw a touchdown pass to A.J. DeVito. Meanwhile, Plainfield East, they've been putting up some huge numbers to get off to a 3-0 start. They scored 55 points last week. I believe they've scored 55 points in all 3 games coming in tonight. They were, of course, shut out. Very impressive performance by Yorkville defense. Sets up a 4-0 versus 4-0 matchup next week. Yorkville at Oswego. Again, Joshua Welge for Friday Night Drive for the final score. Yorkville 28, Plainfield East 0.
Yes, 55 all 3 times and then 0 tonight. That's not good. That's a crash to earth if you can for the Bengals. You don't want that for sure.
Well, we talked a little bit about this over the course of the week in regards to how these are crossover games in the Southwest.
This is how they go.
And this is how they typically go. And they have so far tonight. I haven't seen a final on it, but it looked like Plainfield North was taking care of Romeoville pretty easily. So, I mean, and these were games that when I was looking at them on paper, I'm like, have we bridged the gap or have we not bridged the gap? And so far, it doesn't look like we've bridged the gap. Those teams will still have opportunities to, get themselves into the playoffs, of course, when they go back into division play. But as far as are they ready to compete at the higher end of that, so far, the results seem to indicate that they aren't quite there yet.
They're finally coming out of the timeout, the injury timeout at Marist. And we had one of those injuries a couple weeks ago. It took a while for them to get that taken care of, I think, in the Brother Rice game. So it's just bad luck with that. JCA going in, full double tight end set, stuffed at the goal line. They did not get in. I have no idea what's on the clock. And that was 3rd down. So this is going to be 4th down now. And there's somebody called timeout, as Joliet Catholic clearly had to call timeout to stop the clock and give themselves another crack at the egg here. But this is a barn burner for sure watching this one. So we'll keep an eye on that. Everybody went to a timeout. Clifton Central with a 2-touchdown lead. It's 35-21. Oakwood trying to climb back into it. 8:19 to go in that one. And Althoff and Marion down to the wire in terms of time, but not in score. Marion up by 56-24. That's about 3 minutes to go down there. So they'll come out of the timeout and we'll watch. ZB's got one back, so they're down 28-24, 4.5 to go here. And so they kick into the end zone. Lake Forest will start at their own 20 with 4:31 left in that one. Watching some finals, still looking at from the western suburbs standpoint. I mentioned York over Leiden, 56-0. Bartlett over Streamwood, 28-7. Dundee Crown did shut out Hampshire tonight, a final of 24-0. Wheaton Academy over Marion Central Catholic, 42-28. Oswego and Oswego East, both those teams score a lot of points. The winner tonight, Oswego East, though, over Joliet Central with 77 tonight, 77-0. The final in that one. Naperville Central gets on the board, 24-17. A winner at Neuqua Valley. Batavia doubles up Lake Park on the road, 42-21. OPRF over Proviso West, a final of 48-12. What are you watching other than the fact that I've got Marist and Joliet Catholic going down to the wire?
That Kankakee game has gone final. That would be a 28-17 win for Kankakee. Gets them back to the 500 mark. Knocks Normal Community from the wow, seeing the note down there from Brian Stone. I'll let you take over on that one.
I'm watching this too, and I haven't seen it yet. So they lined up for a 19-yard field goal. I'm going to call it. They mishandled the snap. That's what happened, and they end up getting the touchdown. It was an inside snap, and they win the game. That was it. That's the end of the game. So the snap, okay, I'm going to turn to the side to try and see if I got to go this way for it. So basically the snap came in, and instead of in the proper out position, it came in too far, and he just sort of fumbled it, but quickly made a decision. I don't know who that is, but that was a really, really intelligent decision to say, we can't try this. And so whoever was sneaking out from the end, they ran it properly. And as a guy who was on kickoff or a field goal team before, when you hear fire, fire, you have a route to run. There's a route. You just know that you're running. You've done it in practice, and that is just a gut punch for Marist. The final in that one, 23-17. Wow, what a finish!
Yeah,
that was awesome.
Yeah.
Wow, I don't know if we'll beat that one tonight. That's for sure. So what does this do? I mean, Marist, let's look at their schedule. I think we just have to look at that right away and just first figure out what do they have waiting for them, and is there a path to the postseason for them? Because honestly, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'm not either, to be completely honest with you. I'm pulling that up right now.
They're 0-4. They've got IC Catholic next week at home. They're at Providence, and then St. Ignatius, followed by Marmion and Niles Notre Dame. That isn't nearly as bad as it could be, but they really need to run the table at this point, or at least get to 4. I think. And, this is one of those teams that would be in the mix for a 4-win postseason bid, wouldn't you say? That's pretty easy to call.
And like I said, this was like we were talking about before. I mean, when you compare it to what Joliet Catholic has left, they also have Nazareth, but they also have Mount Carmel, and they finished with Providence. So, I mean, that was a more challenging situation for them. Still, very big uphill climb for them, because looking at it logically, in order to stay off of 5 losses, they're going to have to beat one of Nazareth and Mount Carmel, and then Providence is a must-win for them in Week 9. So, that's definitely a big road to haul. But if they would have lost it, obviously, it would have been a much worse situation for them. So
that's just
there are so many teams in the Catholic League right now, and I thought it was interesting heading into this week how many 3-0s the Catholic League has already produced. These are schools that are typically sitting here after 3 weeks going 2-1, 1-2, looking at the rest of their schedule. 3-0, and then maybe losing tonight, dropping to 3-1. That's a lot more livable. I think whoever loses that Montini Fenwick game tonight is in much better space than they usually are after 4 games. If they took a loss in Week 4, they would usually be looking up at it saying, "Well, we got to split. We got to win 3 of 5." I mean, that's something. So at 3-1 after 4, you're in a lot better shape, and that seems to be the case for several of these teams right now. Contrasting, there are some teams at 0-3 that really need this win tonight so they can start to try to climb back, and that's what hopefully for Joliet Catholic, that's what they're doing here.
Just incredible. I mean, I can't tell you how bad I feel for Marist, because they did everything right. They forced pressure on the mishandled snap, but I don't know who the holder is. I always assume it's the starting quarterback, but whoever ran that route, I'm telling you, what happened was it was on the snap, mishandled it, but then he picked it up, rolled to his right a couple steps on a typical rollout, and he slipped the pass into the flat, which is like at the 1 yard line, and he flopped in the end zone for the touchdown. You can't win a game. You can't script it any better than a Disney movie just like that. It was amazing how they did it. So if we get a chance to figure out that highlight or show it to you, we'll do so. But it's a good time to take a break and catch our breath after that. We've got recaps that are coming in from all across the state of Illinois. We got finals that are coming in. We got games that are going deep into the night because of some rain and lightning delays. So we're going to watch those too. I'm all in on ZB Nation right now as they're trying to get a defensive stop and get it back to try and go for the win here down with about 3.5 minutes left to go, down by 4. We'll tell you how it turns out when we come back. This is week 4 of Live with Friday Night Drive here on Shaw Local.
I'm State Representative Steve Reich. Since 2017, I've led the fight to reform our child welfare system and supported educational choice for every kid in Illinois. I've worked to stop the collapse of our public pensions while standing up for businesses that are being crushed by crippling mandates. And I've never forgotten who pays the bill. The work isn't finished, and as I run for re-election, I'm asking for your support. I'm Steve Reich, and I approve this message.
SGKR Injury Attorneys tackles the toughest cases. I'm Matt Rundio. When life throws a flag, we go on offense to protect your rights. Don't get sidelined. Score a touchdown with SGKR. Visit us at sgkr.law.
At Oliver's, we are proud to serve our community. We serve up great customer service, quality products, ease of shopping, and we serve up delicious barbecued sandwiches at our fundraiser cookouts. So stop by Oliver's, 748 North Brenton and Dixon, and help fund our local clubs and events.
In Illinois and into Iowa, the story of Shaw Media is a story of trust. Since 1851, we've been informing, connecting, and reflecting the communities we serve, large and small, rural and urban, suburban, and river towns alike. With dozens of local newspapers, radio stations, magazines, and specialty brands like Friday Night Drive and Starve Rock Country, we meet people wherever they are. We shine a light on local government. We celebrate Friday night touchdowns. We tell the stories that shape your day, from neighborhood heroes to the Chicago Bears. But what truly sets us apart? It's our people. The award-winning journalists, broadcasters, and storytellers who live here, work here, and care deeply about what matters most to you. We don't just report the news. We're part of the fabric of the places we serve, from the Mississippi to the Illinois, from the Fox all the way to the chain of lakes. Trusted for generations, still earning it every day. Shaw Media, your most trusted local source.
And we are back on Friday Night Drive, live with Friday Night Drive here for week 4. Matt Rodewald, Steve Soucie. We're watching, we just finished watching a great finish from Joliet Catholic and Marist. No doubt you're going to want to read about that over the course of the next few days. I'm watching Zion Benton, and they've got the ball back, and they're in Wake Forest territory inside the 40 with under 3 minutes to go. Can the ZBs get to 4-0? Let's do it.
There we go.
Yeah, what do you got? What are you watching right now? What's happening out there?
I'm just trying to catch up on some scores that have been coming in because quite a few of them are.
Yep.
I was thinking of one I just saw that was coming in. Early in the game, this was pretty competitive, so I thought we were going to have a discussion because Fremden-New Trier was a competitive game early.
Yeah.
Pulling away. I don't know if we've answered our question whether or not it was New Trier good.
Is New Trier good?
I'm still not sure. I'm gonna keep on that line of opinion at this point in time.
We're going to do this for 9 weeks. We don't know. We just don't. Are you good? We don't know. It's a simple question. Show us if you're good or not. We don't know.
Exactly.
And those I wouldn't call them meddling because that's not fair, but it's always the in-between teams where you're beating the teams you're supposed to beat, but you can't beat the teams that you would be nice if you did, and to show, and that you kind of fall they call the tweeners. Yeah, for sure. So the Zion Benton's got the ball at the 42-yard line, and I don't know what they're running, but that wasn't good, so they decided to call a timeout because that wasn't they had 5 people running in motion. I don't think that was how it's supposed to work. Any new finals that have come in that you've seen that caught your eye? I'm still looking for them other than El Paso Gridley. Just roll it up. Gibson City, Melvin, and Sibley, 52-14 the final in that one. Salt Fork over Watseka, 47-6. What do you got? Anything good?
Yeah, the one that came, I think we glazed over this one a little bit. I don't know if it was quite final. We talked about it a little bit earlier. Seneca did finish off that 35-20.
They did, yes.
Kingston. That one kind of stands out to me a little bit. I honestly thought that Seneca would do what they've done early on. Genoa kept that a lot closer than I thought they would. So, that's a good win for Seneca, I guess it looks like in this point in time. And Genoa putting up a good fight. It looks like that team is ready to mix it up kind of in the middle of the Big Northern.
Yeah, I think they're a decent team. They're not a Byron, they're not a Dixon, but they're probably slotting themselves right behind them at this point. And, they got a touchdown late to get it to within 7. Within the last 5 seconds of the game. But atmosphere there looked good. And, when you have the Central Rockets and Genoa Kingston about 15 minutes apart, 2 big games right around this area. So it was nice to see that. And they just try to throw at the end zone. No, it's incomplete. So, let's see, I'm going to watch the replay to see. But, Zion Benton has, obviously they have athleticism, but just the ability to get downfield and go vertical, and they are trying it. They are not afraid to just chuck it and say, go get it. I'm very impressed with the fact that they're really aggressive with their play calling. I've seen this, as I'm watching here in this second half. Kind of like what I'm seeing from them. Muhammad Seymour, we saw what they did to Sycamore last week. This week over Taylorville, 49-27. So they're one of those teams where it's like, you better keep up with us because we're going to put some points on the board for sure. Third down, and I believe a fourth down coming up here, 2.5 minutes to go for the old CB. So we'll watch that. Peoria High School, 76-6 over Manual tonight. Central A&M down in Moequa over Madison, 49-26. Monticello over St. Teresa, 39-20. As I'm kind of cutting through Central Illinois here. Warrensburg Latham over Shelbyville, 28-8. And those are the finals that I have right now. Just kind of glancing at I'm going to look at some standings too, as they'll get updated here as we go throughout the night as well. Surprise 4-0 teams jumping off the chart for you at the moment without any recall. Also, let me get into this. Bloomington Central Catholic over PBL, 21-14 the final in downstate. And did they pick up the 4th and 10? Of course they did. The Zion Benton ZBs pick up 4th and 10. I'm watching the replay again. I don't know who this quarterback is, but he's nimble and he's getting out of the pocket, and they're a problem when they do. Yep, jump throw, perfect. 11-yard pickup. They're at the 30-yard line. The ZBs marching down the field, trying to go to 4-0. Are we overdoing this a little bit?
Maybe a little bit, but it is fun. That's what we're doing.
This is fun. We want this.
That's what we're doing. So,
yeah.
You asked about surprising 4-0s.
Yes.
I don't know if there's anybody that's really jumped right away. But one team that I noticed went to 4-0 tonight. They won. Sandberg has moved to 4-0.
Yeah, how about that?
That's an interesting thing to keep a monitor on because they made a coaching change. In the off season, Troy McAllister departing for Homewood Flossmoor. It was interesting to see how they transitioned. They promoted a guy from their understaff, a guy who had coached at Blue Island Eisenhower previously, Seamus Murphy, respected for what he did with the Eisenhower program when he was the head coach there. Looks like he's kept things going with Sandberg, and now they're in great situation now. Interestingly enough, next week they play Homewood Flossmoor. Yep. So that'll be a nice little situation there for them. So and we touched on it. Yorkville with the easy win tonight. I'll be honest. If you would have told me Yorkville was going to be 4-0 through the first 4 games, I probably would have fought you on that one a little bit. But
I'm looking at the score on the screen, by the way. I did not expect Geneva to have an easy time with Wheaton Warrenville South, and it looked like they did. 28-7. That was Geneva's home opener tonight.
Yeah, they jumped out early in that game. I think it was 21-0 in the bat of an eye in that one. So, that was definitely a situation where they kind of took control of that game early and maybe stepped off the accelerator a little bit and cruised it on home. So, and
Rex is right; they are very run heavy for sure, and honestly, they're going to have to be with Nelson Wendell, really nice athletic running back that they have back there for sure for the Geneva Vikings. Let me go back to Sandberg. Just you mentioned Homewood Flossmoor, then they go to Naperville North, then they have Lockport, Neuqua Valley, and then a short week before Lincoln Way East in Week 9. Not saying they're going to run the 8-0 table, but be an interesting test for Lincoln Way East if they can get a real good team Week 9 and then an extra day of rest before they get into the postseason for sure. And assuming Lincoln Way East would have a lesser quality opponent Week 10, this is shaping up to work out in favor for both of these teams, I would think, the way the schedule shakes out.
Yeah, it sure does look like that. And moving over a little bit farther over on that 4-0 list, Brother Rice, obviously with that big win over Loyola tonight, that leads to a couple of interesting situations that maybe were unexpected before this week came into play. Looking at not to try to look ahead too far, but it looks like we could have a really interesting Week 6 matchup potentially with 5-0 Brother Rice and 5-0 Mount Carmel, pending they obviously get through those Week 5 games. Those are crossover games against a division that probably, to be honest with you, probably is not quite up to the level of the Blues. So the expectation would be both of those teams would be 5-0. A Week 6 game between two 5-0 teams, which would be something that I wouldn't have predicted before the season started. Just based on the fact that Brother Rice has played better than I expected. I thought that this was a team that could break out. They're clearly doing that. So it's definitely a good situation for them. So moving forward, and the other interesting underlying thing to that now is with Loyola not playing that Week 2 game, all right, they still have Mount Carmel on the schedule. And if they don't win that game, just speaking for sake of argument, all right, the best record that Loyola can put together is to get to the 6-win plateau, all right? That's the best record that they could do. Because now the best record that they could, if they won out, would be they would finish with 7 wins. That's the best that they could do. So if they don't beat Mount Carmel, the best they could do is 6 wins. And that would mean that they won all of their other games. So all of a sudden, we start thinking about maybe there's a little pinch here on Loyola because they still have Mount Carmel later in the season. Can they get through these other games without too much damage because they don't have the cushion of having the full 9-game schedule? So anytime they lose, it has a little bit more weight to it, not only in whether or not they get the playoffs, but how they're going to end up on the seed chart. Because if you projected them as a 7-win team in that loaded 8A draw, that looks like they'd be somewhere around the middle of the field, 14, 15, 16 seed. As a 6-win team, that goes down even further. So think about getting your draw on pairings night, and you look up and you're like, yay, I'm a 10 seed.
Yay! And you Loyola. No!
A 23 seed is Loyola.
No!
I mean, that's, I made the top 10 seeds. All right.
I'm looking at you, Niles West or Maine West or one of those. No, I'm looking at you, South Elgin. You're going to get that.
So that's just kind of what you have to look at here. And it's always a factor in the Catholic League because odds are you're going to have a hard time getting through that league without maybe a couple of blemishes on that record. But Loyola's situation is a unique one because of that 8-game schedule. 2 losses really in the roundabout way means 3 losses.
Yep.
3 losses means 4. So that's really what it comes down to.
All right, so it was Similchuk, by the way, on the touchdown pass for Similik, I should say. I don't know the kid's name yet, so I'm sure I will for Joliet Catholic on the botched field goal attempt. No one's asking who the snapper is. I'm sure he's fine with that right now. He's probably going,
well, that's their starting quarterback. I mean, he can sling it. So I mean that is their starting quarterback. There's no surprise that he was able to execute that play. They have thrown the ball more than Joliet Catholic typically does this year, and Lucas Similuk, an excellent baseball player as well, and showing off that arm.
It took me a second to recall that, but hey, by the way, I have bad news. 4th and 10 did not go well for the ZBs. Lake Forest genuflect time, so. But you know what? They played okay. Good for them. In years past, we've seen these 2 wins, 3 wins early, and you're like, okay, let me see what you really look like. And they look like a team that could win some games. So good for them. They're going to get somebody, I think. They should be walking away with that positively. Other games that are happening right now, but yeah, I mentioned just that Loyola aspect of that you talked about there. Fascinating how that's going to work. They're probably the most intriguing 8A seed line wherever they're going to go because I don't think it's going to. You talk about 6 wins, a 4-4 Loyola team, a 5-3 Loyola team. I don't want to see that. And if you're Mount Carmel, and you there's that chance that you see them back-to-back weeks if you do what you're supposed to do to them in week 9, so to speak, right?
Well, there's another kicker too with Loyola. You mentioned a 4-4 team; they won't get in because they don't have an opponent in week 2 to give them any points. So, they are
think about at least 9 points.
They are not a consideration as a 4-win team. So if they were to lose, to get that,
so they got to get to 5.
Where they're 4-4, they have to get to 5 because they simply don't have enough opportunities to gain playoff points.
Let me ask you in Central Illinois in the Big 12, because we don't talk about them a whole lot, and I want to talk about this for a minute. Glenwood beating Rochester in overtime, and Rochester hadn't lost at home to a public school for a long, long time. That's 18 years, the last time they lost to a public school.
Glenwood,
go ahead.
Scott. Thank you. Thank you, Scott. I appreciate it.
Outstanding. Glenwood 4-0.
I've heard good things about this Glenwood team all off season. Rochester does Rochester things. It felt like early in that game they were kind of in control of it, but they never got far enough away. They never got far enough away to just put the game away. They seem to have the lead almost all game. Glenwood appears to have caught them at the end. I kind of lost track of that thread, but and then got them in overtime. That's a big win for Glenwood in that situation. That's one of those situations on paper. You kind of look at it. You're thinking Glenwood probably runs the table if they can get that game because Central State 8, very top heavy this year. I think honestly that those are the 2 best teams in that league. So, even though they're in divisions now, it's no longer a locked conference. I think that was pretty much determining who the best team in that conference is. Maybe Quincy Notre Dame throws their hat in that ring. I don't know how they did against Sacred Heart Griffin tonight, but those are the other teams on the periphery. But I think those. What's that?
SHG did win that game. I was following that tonight. About a 16-point win.
Okay, yeah, and I mean that's a big mountain for Quincy Notre Dame to climb. That's a 3A, 4A school that's competing against 5s, 6s, and 7s all year long. So kudos to them to going into that challenge.
So we go from that conference of Central State 8 to the Big 12 because the score that just caught my eye, I was fascinating by Bloomington, the Purple Raiders, getting a win over Normal West tonight, 31-27, a tight win. What do you make of Bloomington? Because they've been quietly kind of sneaking on everyone's radar. I know the folks down in Central Illinois have been paying attention to, but from a statewide poll standpoint, not really getting a lot of juice. Can they get there?
When you look at the Big 12 over the past 5, 6, 7 years, you look at it, you stack it like this. You stack Normal Community up at the top along with Peoria, Normal West a step behind those 2, and then it's kind of everyone else. Well, Bloomington has clearly bridged that gap now, and they are now upward into that conversation. I'm interested to see how far they've come and whether or not they can make that move towards those top 2 dogs in that conference in terms of Normal Community and Peoria. Normal Community coming off of a loss. Obviously, that's a non-conference loss. But, I mean, I don't know the stats on that directly.
I don't either.
But Normal Community, literally, I don't think they've lost a lot of Big 12 games in the last 5 to 7 years.
Been quite a while. Yeah.
Can Bloomington make that leap? Are they ready to compete at the level of the Ironman? I'll be interested to see how that plays out.
And good for Bloomington. I remember Bloomington, program 20 years ago that was always, like state final appearance or state semifinal appearance or always in the mix there. And then they sort of fell off a bit. So it's nice. Them and Freeport, too, were two teams, I would say, from the mid-2000s that were always kind of in that 6A. They're going to be there. But now they've kind of worked their way back. I'm watching Clifton Central try and close this out as Oakwood's trying to go in. They're right on the edge of the red zone under 3 minutes to go, but they just got sacked here. So it looks like Clifton Central's in good position here. That clock's going to run. It's going to be like 3rd and 18 here coming up there for the Comets, or for Oakwood, I should say, against the Comets defense. We have a couple of recaps we want to get to as well before we get to our next break. So let's see if we can load these up real quick. And you and I talked about Genoa, Kingston, and Seneca, trying to figure out, how good Seneca is. And is Genoa Kingston going to be a team that's going to cause some problems in the Big Northern Conference? Brian Hoxie was at that game, and he's got more for us tonight.
Hi, Brian Hoxie here, Friday Night Drive, Shaw Media. Tonight I was in Genoa. Genoa Kingston was hosting Seneca in football. Seneca led 14-0 after the first quarter. They scored on their first 2 drives. But then the Irish turned the ball over on an interception and a fumble, and the Clogs turned both of those into touchdowns to make the halftime score 14-14. Late in the game, Seneca had a 28-21 lead with 5 minutes to go. 4th and 4 from the Genoa 39. They went for it and got it. Were able to eventually score to make it 35-21. Genoa scored with 9 seconds left to make the final 35-28. That makes Seneca 4-0. Genoa Kingston's 1-3. Again, Brian Hoxie, Shaw Media, Friday Night Drive.
Soucie, your reaction when you listen to Brian's report from what happened with Seneca tonight?
It definitely was one of those situations where I was waiting for someone to kind of maybe see if they could slow down that Seneca running game just a little bit. No one has done it. I mean, they have put together – no one has fully done it, I should say.
Right.
They've put together consistently 400-yard rushing games throughout the first couple of weeks of the season. It's real kind of a well-oiled machine in the early part. So that for Seneca, they need that. I mean, there's a couple of interesting games for them down the line, but they don't have necessarily a very good overall schedule. I'll put it that way. They do have that interesting non-conference game with St. Joe Ogden later in the year. Interested to see how that one goes, but their schedule is kind of a hodgepodge. It's got some, that's just the way it is in that conference where it's only kind of like 4 loosely affiliated teams. They don't even qualify for like a conference champion bid. So, they just kind of have to put their schedule together with whoever they can find. And like I said, so this is definitely a good sign for Seneca that they're able to kind of finish that off and move into the middle portion of their schedule where I think for the next couple of weeks they're going to be the clear favorite once again. So to have a grind-out win where they kind of have to, the outcome is a little bit in doubt, probably a good thing for them moving forward.
Clifton Central was able to force a turnover on downs, and that's kneel down time. I think one more time, and they're going to finish it up. Clifton Central goes to 4-0, if I'm not mistaken, at this point. The Comets, the Fighting I-57s. I love going to a game down there. I've been to playoff games. I talked about this on this show quite a bit. Great atmosphere down there at Clifton Central, down in your neck of the woods. Is there any games that are still going on right now? I know we had lightning and weather delays. What are you watching right now? As I want to reload my board here. We'll have a break here momentarily, and I want to get to a recap here as we learn about what's going on with Cary Grove and Huntley tonight. But what games are you watching right now that are still going?
Yeah, right now I haven't been able to find anything that is all that intriguing that is coming down to the wire. Starting to get a little bit more finals in here.
Yep.
Just kind of looking around, trying to see what's going on. The one game that I'm confused about, and I could be wrong about this, was Maine South and Barrington tonight, or did they move that game to tomorrow?
It was tonight. I saw some news on that for a bit, so I thought that was tonight. Let me double check. Now, Barrington has done homecomings on their Saturday, but usually it's deeper. They move that to week 6, week 7. They don't usually do it this early. So we'll see if we can find a final of that for sure. Let's check in with Cary Grove and Huntley, because we were talking about, if you joined us at the top of the show, you learned that Prairie Ridge was doing Prairie Ridge things, and things are fine up in Crystal Lake. But what about the folks in Cary Grove who started 0-2 on the year? Have they figured things out? Looks like they did. Cary Grove with Alex Kentucky, a win tonight.
Alex Kentucky here from Friday Night Drive. Final from Huntley, where Cary Grove beat Huntley 34-27. Logan Abrams, the fullback on Cary Grove, had another huge game. He ran for over 200 yards and 3 touchdowns. But his biggest play came on defense, where he chased down Huntley quarterback Malik Carter on 4th down, stopping him 1 yard short on Huntley's last possession. Malik Carter had a huge game himself, threw for over 250 yards, 3 touchdowns, with all 3 going to wide receiver Kyle Zeeble. Zeeble caught touchdowns of 48, 47, and 31 yards. Again, Cary Grove 34, Huntley 27.
27, the final in that one. So good one between two teams with contrasting styles. We've saw 2 of those games tonight.
Yeah, and you know, when you looked at that game early on, it looked like Cary Grove had that in the bag. I believe they were up 3 scores at halftime.
Easily, yes.
Like Huntley definitely came back into that game. But, you know, there's another situation where we were talking before about a 3-0 team comes into the game with a 3-0 record, probably actually the underdog on paper, was unable to move on to 4-0. So I think we're going to have a pretty significant depletion of the ranks of the undefeated tonight, not only from the head-to-head matchups, which obviously have to detract one undefeated team,
right?
But I think there are a lot of these other 3-0s out there that were playing a 1-loss, maybe in a 2-loss, and they're going to get knocked from those ranks as well.
One of those you just talked about with Barrington going down tonight to Maine South. It was a final 41-21 in Barrington tonight at Steve Soucie Memorial Stadium. You did sponsor that this year, right? Did you put up the $1 million to get the naming rights?
Yeah, definitely threw that out there.
You know what we're going to do? We're going to call it Shaw Local Stadium. That's what we're going to do. We'll do that. You know, John Sally and company, they'll take care of it for us. They'll just make sure that, you know, Friday Night Drive Stadium or Friday Night Drive Field at Shaw Local Stadium. Yes, I figured it out. That's how we're going to do it from now on. So, and if you have $2 million that you want to help donate for us, we can go ahead and take care of it. I'll contribute like $10. Seuss, you got you got a couple singles there. Next week is Barrington homecoming. They've got Palatine coming in on a Saturday at noon. So typically it's a little deeper in the season. So with the warm weather, it's been nice that we had a little rain tonight. I don't know if we really dealt with that too much throughout the season, but it was nice to have this 80-degree push. Because you know what's coming in November? Awfulness. We're all going to pay for this.
Yes, absolutely. No question about it.
One more recap before we go to break as you're getting yourself organized too. And you and I had asked about Canelan because we want to figure out how good Canelan is. The Knights rolling up the Ottawa Pirates. And Joel Bennett was over there tonight listening in. See what he has to say about the Knights.
Joel Bennett with Friday Night Drive here in Maple Park, where Canelan just came out with a 56-7 victory over Ottawa to kick off Interstate 8 play. The Knights just had control of this game from the jump. They had 35 points by the end of the first quarter. They had 49 points by the end of the first half, which made it a running clock for the entirety of the second half. A lot of that was because of the play of quarterback Jalen Carter, who finished 6 of 10 for 118 yards and 2 touchdowns, one to Evan Frieders, one to Brady Brown. He also had a rushing touchdown to kick off the scoring. Carter Gabrowski had 8 rushes for 81 yards and 2 touchdowns. He did go down with an injury in the second quarter, so something to look at. Knights defense also did really well. They recovered 2 fumbles, or they recovered 4 fumbles in this game, my bad. And they also had a pick 6 from Brady Allstott. For Ottawa, they had a 72-yard rushing touchdown from Archer Chekowitz in the first quarter, and that was all that they could really manage. Canelan moves to 4-0 for the second straight season. They'll face Morris next week. Ottawa falls to 2-2, and they will face Sycamore.
Do we have a Morris score tonight? Because that is going to be a matchup that is going to be outstanding next week.
They were winning comfortably last I saw, so I would be surprised.
Shocked if it's anything other than 4-0 versus 4-0 for that one.
Correct.
So that's great. if Caitlin wins that, you would imagine they could run the table here at this point, based on what's left on the schedule. I know there's a Sycamore, but it feels like they're down. I know there's an Althoff, which I can't figure out, but I think that's a team that Caitlin would be favored to win there. So the Caitlin Knights just continue to figure out how to get good teams together. They're kind of doing the last couple of years what Sycamore had done for the last 10. So it's kind of cool to see that what Caitlin's done.
Yeah, no, like I said, it was definitely one of those things you kind of look at. How do you stack that conference? It's always so difficult. You feel like you get into the middle of the season and there's 2 or 3 games where you literally have no idea which way they're going to go. So Caitlin off to a really good start. Maybe they'll get that momentum going and get themselves in a position where they can make a run at this. And I really do think, and I just saw a third quarter score on the crawl down there, Morris was up 49-0 in that game over LaSalle Peru. So I think it's safe to assume that we do have that 4-0 game. And I've been really impressed with what Morris has done. So I think that's going to be a real interesting game to take a look at.
Yeah, that win over Peoria last week spoke volumes about how good they are. But the other aspect of it is Caitlin's played one tight game, a good win over Lamont. And so Morris, and then at Sycamore, and then they have Rochelle in their building. So for Caitlin's, the schedule actually works out where they get Morris, Rochelle, and Althoff in their building to finish the year. That's pretty good. And then they get to go to LaSalle Peru, which is kind of tricky, especially in October. And you don't know what you're going to get from them, especially in that building. But I like how the schedule shakes out for them. With Morris, they've got Sycamore in their building, but they've got Byron Center from Michigan, who, again, they're 1-2 right now, which is unusual for them if you know your Michigan football. But that's not going to be an easy game for them. And so this could decide what the league ends up turning out for the Interstate 8. So it's fun to kind of keep an eye on how that league is going to shake out. We need to take a break, and we're going to check on to see if there are any losing streaks that have ended. Those are our favorite. Last week we had Tremont, the Turks, going on with a win. Was there anyone else who snapped the skid? We want to find out. Let us know. Jump in the chat and give us the finals if we haven't seen them or mentioned them just yet. If you're just joining us, we got a lot of finals in the books and maybe just a couple of games still going because of weather delays. So let us know. We've got more recaps coming too. I can guarantee you that. He's Steve Soucie. I'm Matt Rodewald. You are watching Week 4 of Live with Friday Night Drive here in Shaw Local.
I'm State Representative Steve Reich. Since 2017, I've led the fight to reform our child welfare system and supported educational choice for every kid in Illinois. I've worked to stop the collapse of our public pensions while standing up for businesses that are being crushed by crippling mandates. And I've never forgotten who pays the bill. The work isn't finished, and as I run for re-election, I'm asking for your support. I'm Steve Reich, and I approve this message.
SGKR Injury Attorneys tackles the toughest cases. I'm Matt Rundio. When life throws a flag, we go on offense to protect your rights. Don't get sidelined. Score a touchdown with SGKR. Visit us at sgkr.law.
At Oliver's, we are proud to serve our community. We serve up great customer service, quality products, ease of shopping, and we serve up delicious barbecued sandwiches at our fundraiser cookouts. So stop by Oliver's, 748 North Brenton in Dixon, and help fund our local clubs and events.
In Illinois and into Iowa, the story of Shaw Media is a story of trust. Since 1851, we've been informing, connecting, and reflecting the communities we serve, large and small, rural and urban, suburban, and river towns alike. With dozens of local newspapers, radio stations, magazines, and specialty brands like Friday Night Drive and Starved Rock Country, we meet people wherever they are. We shine a light on local government. We celebrate Friday night touchdowns. We tell the stories that shape your day, from neighborhood heroes to the Chicago Bears. But what truly sets us apart? It's our people. The award-winning journalists, broadcasters, and storytellers who live here, work here, and care deeply about what matters most to you. We don't just report the news. We're part of the fabric of the places we serve, from the Mississippi to the Illinois, from the Fox all the way to the chain of lakes. Trusted for generations, still earning it every day. Shaw Media, your most trusted local source.
And welcome back, and thank you for joining us here as we go to our final half hour together, and then you go deep into the depths of the darkness that is Week 4's Friday night, and maybe a little rain as well to kind of soothe things over as you scramble for scores and look for random public league scores that you can't get until Saturday morning at 9 a.m. somehow. How are you feeling about the totality of this Week 4 as you're looking at the Morris final over LP tonight, 48 to nothing, the Morris whatever they are. So a big win for them. East St. Louis over Alton. They played somebody from Illinois, and as typical, this is how it's going to go for the next probably 4 or 5 weeks. East St. Louis, the Flyers 60 on Alton 6. So the Redbirds get on the board but lose 60-6. You and I were kind of confused off the air in terms of Dixon, North Boone. No, Dixon won, and it wasn't close. So North Boone came in 3-0, and they promptly went to 3-1, losing I believe 48 to nothing in that one. Not pretty, but Dixon's good. We know that, and so we found out tonight North Boone not quite ready to be on that stage.
Yeah, definitely one of those situations where you kind of felt like that was another one of those games where you're looking for 3-0, the team with the one loss, probably a substantial favorite, played out the way that it was supposed to be. While we're here, I got a couple of Catholic League finals I don't think that we've touched on so far. Carmel with a 21-14 win over St. Lawrence, which I find a little bit interesting. Also, battle of 3-0s. Montini claims a 31-29 win over Fenwick.
Okay.
So that's Montini moving to 4-0, Fenwick to 3-1. We talked about both of those
That's
two
a really nice win for Montini tonight.
Yeah, talk about those two teams a little bit earlier. Montini the last couple years prior to last year's state championship game, they were a good football team. Everybody knew it. They were not able to get to 5 wins. Now they sit at 4-0. So a lot of that pressure is relieved from, hey, are we going to be able to get into the field? Obviously, with the multiplier changes, Montini is a 4A team in the postseason, maybe a 5A team, but they're trending towards 4A after winning the 3A title last year. But now they're in great shape moving forward because there's very easily at least one more win on that schedule for them to lock in, clinching a playoff berth and then probably a bit more as well. So great shape for Montini. Fenwick in a good, despite the loss, still in pretty good shape as well.
I like what Matt now said because this is the point where we start to see teams that lost in Week 1 kind of drift back onto our radar a little bit now if they've won out. And so one of those teams is Lakes, and they got a good one tonight over Grays Lake Central. And then you see Antioch there. So both of those comments from him. Antioch rolling up Round Lake tonight. Round Lake got one of those wins a couple of weeks ago. Not this time, but. Round Lake, or I should say Antioch and Lakes. Those are two in-district rivals because Antioch split to give you Lakes a couple years back down in Lake Villa. And so Antioch gets to go to Lake Villa. Both of those teams 3-1, and I don't know what Wakanda did tonight off the top of my head, but they had Grays Lake North. I presume they were winning that game. But this is a pivotal matchup, and you get to this point in the season, these rivalry games suddenly matter. Antioch and Lakes is about as good as they get up there at the state line. That should be a fun atmosphere in Lake Villa next week.
Yeah, it should. And I mean, that you kind of look at that conference on a year-to-year basis. And anymore, those are the two teams at the top. It's passed back and forth over the last couple of years, but Antioch obviously not having any trouble scoring any points this season so far. So it looks like it'll be a situation where Wakanda has to try to slow them down a little bit, but. Like I said, they have held their own in that series over the last couple of years. No one else has really been able to do that. Just popped across another Southwest Valley score that I find somewhat interesting. Andrew with a 42-40 win over Wabansie Valley tonight. So that's a lot of points being thrown around tonight. A lot of 40s, a lot of 50s, 70s. I mean, there are a lot of points being put on the board tonight in various fields around the state.
Yes, we like points, but I also like double wings. So if you can run that and get points out of that, great. That's awesome. Appreciate that, and for sure, it's the modernness of it that's always amusing for me. I'm trying to float around because something crossed my eyes that caught my attention. Oh, just this another 3-0 team that went down. We were watching the folks out in East Moline, United Township. They lost to Sterling tonight. The score 49-28, but that game was tight for a while, and it just completely got away from UT in that one. So. They dropped the 3-1. Sterling, I don't know what to make of them at this point because they're kind of goofy these last couple of years where they've hi, we're 4-5, we're in, at this point. Yeah. So I don't know. I haven't even looked at their schedule. I haven't figured out where the record is at this point, but that caught my eye tonight. So curious to see how that will shake things out here in the coming weeks ahead. Other scores that are catching your eye as you're looking. How about Wilmington over Herscher tonight? No problem, 49-7 in that one. And then trying to sort out the Duquesne Conference. St. Charles North got to win. Batavia got to win. Both those teams 4-0 battling each other next week.
Did you say Batavia's 4-0? Because they're not.
3-1, I should say.
Yeah,
yes,
yeah,
correct.
Yeah.
You call. You know what? I just assume they keep rolling. So as Sterling now, Golden Warriors 2-3, or they are.
That's another team that we're talking about. Had a week one loss and now seems to have righted the ship and is moving along. So
that's it. Yeah.
Yeah. So that speaks to that point. So basically, obviously, St. Charles North is doing what they have to do in this situation, getting themselves in the best possible position that they can. Batavia obviously wants to get that one too, because now in their situation, you're used, like you said, you're used to them rolling along, but they already have that one loss on the ledger. Yeah. They don't, in the 7A draw, they don't want to be in the middle of it, and that would be what would happen if they get down into that 7-2 range if they were to lose this game. So they have to finish now. They have to keep going if they want to stay out of that 13 to 16 seed lines. You got to stay above that 7-2 mark to make sure that you're a top 10 seed.
And Batavia has to be careful because next week with St. Charles North, the week after that, they go to Geneva. And normally I would say, because of past results with Batavia dominating Geneva in the past, I would say Geneva's got a sense of confidence from last year. They're not as good as last year. They're sort of figuring themselves out and remaking on the fly. At the same time, I don't know what you're going to get from Geneva in a game like that. So if Batavia suddenly drops to St. Charles North and comes into Geneva wounded, you're looking at potentially 3 losses on your schedule to go to 6-3 and having to go on the road somewhere. So this is a tricky stretch for the Battle and Bulldogs. They've got to be very, very careful. Moline 28-7 over Geneseo. How about Marengo over Woodstock tonight? We talked about that matchup being a pair of 3-0s. Marengo improves to 4-0 in Class 4A. What can the Marengo Indians do in these next couple of weeks here to try and see if they can run the table? And I don't remember the last time a Marengo team did that.
Yeah, it's been a while. I mean, I can remember, time and period when, those conferences have moved around so much, but I can remember a time and period where Marengo was in the neighborhood with Richmond Burton.
Yep.
Are they now? That's an interesting question. So, I mean, when we look forward and move ahead, Marengo off to this really good start and has got some pretty solid wins on that resume at this point in time. So I think this isn't indicative of like maybe a soft schedule. I think this is a pretty good football team.
Yeah, I do too. And looking at it, they got Plano on the road next week. They host Johnsburg and Harvard. So Johnsburg might be tricky, but week 8 is the one that looms. And they've got to go to Richmond to face off against RB in that one before getting Sandwich to wrap up the regular season. So maybe that's something for us to kind of figure out in terms of Monday. But the last time a Marengo team went 9-0, I'm looking it up as fast as I can on the fly. Anything else crossing that you're seeing that is amusing to you and maybe caught your attention here as we sort of wind things down? I know we do have some recaps still to go here. Let's check in with Sam as we the Battle of Crystal Lake up north. Now, these are two teams that came in at 0-3 here. They're to be blunt, not very good football teams. So this is the point where you've got to get a win, at least to build your confidence. And Crystal Lake South was able to do that. Let's hear how with Sam.
Hi, everyone. Sam Natrap here for the Northwest Herald and Friday Night Drive. I'm on the campus of Crystal Lake Central, where tonight the intra-city battle of Crystal Lake Central and Crystal Lake South took place. Both teams came in with 0-3 records, so something had to give. And tonight it broke the way of the Gators, who prevailed 34-7. In its first 3 games, South scored only 14 points, but tonight the Gators put up 14 points in the first quarter. Quarterback Michael Silvius led the way with 6 for 9 passing for 221 yards. 5 of those receptions were made by senior split end Noah Franch, who caught 5 balls for 200 yards, including touchdowns of 72 and 61 yards. Anthony Guntanis closed the scoring in dramatic fashion when he took a 100-yard pick six to the house, and that closed the game out with about 3 minutes to go. Central put up 204 yards rushing and put up together a strong rushing attack, but a few too many mistakes and penalties did the Tigers in. South will try to make it 2 in a row next week when it hosts Dundee Crown, while Central will try to get on the winning track at Cary Grove. For the Northwest Herald and Friday Night Drive, this is Sam Natrep from Crystal Lake Central.
All right, thanks to Sam. My fear is Crystal Lake Central has got a new coach and a new system and a new setup, and this happens sometimes. Is the bottom's kind of falling out of the program, and I think at the moment they're staring at 0-9 in a league where it's just unforgiving when you get to this point. Crystal Lake South though has a tricky one with Dundee Crown. You and I talked about Dundee Crown for a second. That's one they've got to get. If they're serious about improving, if they're going to try and get to 5-4 and get in the postseason, that's one you got to get. So We'll see if they can string together a win over Hampshire and a win over Crystal Lake South. And they've got some games on the schedule down the road. And I'm looking at Dundee Crown week 9 against Central and the Rockets at Central, where that could be key. Maybe not so much for Central to get in the postseason, but if you got a 4-4 Dundee Crown team sitting there waiting to try and figure out how to get in the postseason, that suddenly becomes a game that's a trap game for the Rockets.
Yeah, you can see that. Definitely,
Yeah.
It's one of those situations where you have to take care. I just found a score that I've kind of been looking for all night long that I found of interest in the smaller school ranks. Hope Academy with a 61-44 win over Aurora Christian tonight. So that one must have been a little bit wild.
Well, it probably just finished up now. It's 10:45. That's probably why.
Yeah, so that's a good win for Hope. I think Aurora Christian's been off to a nice start. Hope seems to be, getting themselves a situation. They're another team that's kind of affected by that whole multiplier situation. You're used to seeing Hope Academy in that 1A field. They are no longer in that 1A field. They're likely to end up in the 3A field. So. So definitely kind of a situation there worth monitoring, but definitely a good win for Hope tonight.
Hope Academy, they're playing the Nutrier game. Are they good? We couldn't figure it out for a while. It's one of those teams where we just had no idea. So I think we've got an answer on that one. Are they good? Yes, they are good on offense. The rest of it, we'll deal with it down the road. Speaking of lots of offense, I want to get this recap in. Mason Schweizer was at Bishop Mack where they just scored another touchdown because it was 75-0 against Chicago Christian. Remember, Chicago Christian won a state championship last year. Things are very different now for them. Let's hear how it went.
Mason Schweitzer here from the parking lot at Rich Zanani Athletic Complex where Bishop McNamara just earned a 75-0 win on homecoming over defending Class 2A state champion Chicago Christian. The Irish scored 3 touchdowns in their first 5 plays of the game. Set the tone from there. Julius May ran for 3 touchdowns. Malachi Lee ran for a touchdown, caught a touchdown, returned a punt for a touchdown. Michael Lee ran for a touchdown. Carter Krutzinger, who threw that touchdown to Malachi, also threw one to Cohen DeMack. Zane Goley and Reese Landsman with touchdowns in the second half. 11 different McNamara players had a tackle for a loss or a sack for an Irish defense that allowed 4 first downs. They forced 4 turnovers. They're 4-0, tied for the most wins since Coach Zanani, Hall of Fame Coach Rich Zanani, retired 4 years ago, and now are 1 game away from snapping a program-long 3-year playoff drought. And that's the story here from Bishop McNamara.
We forget that they were in the playoffs every year for like 40 years and then sort of dropped off in the midst of that. So that's impressive what they're doing on offense, but they're going to be scary when they get to the postseason, I think.
Well, it's one of those situations where you just kind of look at it. Like I think we've talked a little bit about them, over the course of the last couple of weeks. And I went out and saw them in the summer, and I saw them last year. And if you would have told me, okay, last year's program is basically the same as this year's program, they look like 2 entirely different football teams. I know they have different players added into the mix there, be a transfer or, kids just growing up naturally physically, but they look like 2 entirely different football teams to the point where I did a double take when I saw them in a summer workout and said, wait a minute.
Who are these guys?
What's going on here? So, and then I stayed in Milwaukee for a little while. I was very impressed with what I saw this summer, and I was immediately like, they're going to be on the radar. They're an interesting bubble team between 3 and 4. I think they're a nightmare draw in 3A. 4A,
oh my God,
that's probably going to be a bit of a challenge. But they end up getting in that 3A draw and get the right draw, boy, I don't know if I want anything to do with them because, you look at it right now and what they did here against Chicago Christian. Now, I think this is maybe a 2-3 horse race here. Hope put a big step forward with that win
game.
And then you still got Wheaton Academy lurking around there and not willing to say that they're not in the mix.
They got to win tonight.
You got to put Bishop McNamara in that conversation. I really think you do have to do that.
To pay off the Marengo question, 2015 was the last time they were in the table in the regular season. I forgot about that. They got all the way to the semifinals before dropping in Class 4A. And prior to that, they had a big kind of a drop. That's where you and I look at Marengo from that stretch where they were doing a lot of 1-8s and 2-7s. There are 3 straight 0-9s that kind of slipped in there. Prior to that, they were a semifinal team in 97 as well. But for the last, I'd say 10 years, they have been 4 wins or higher the rest of the way, with the exception of 1 season. So they've been competitive in that league, and that's important to kind of distinct, in terms of our conversation. So kudos to them. We want to give them credit as best we can. Effingham over Charleston tonight, 51-35. That was the final down at Charleston to do. So we just want to make sure that we got that in. I didn't see any streaks, but how about some 4-0s? I'm just going to blurt out for you as you're looking through. Dupo is 4-0. Stop me if you like to talk about any of these. Columbia 4-0 on the year. We talked about Brother Rice, and I'm just going to try and scroll some teams downstate that we didn't exactly see or talk about too much now that the standings are sort of being updated on the fly here for sure. But there are some 4-0 teams now that you're kind of going, oh, did we get an Oak Lawn score tonight? That's one I have not heard yet. We talked about them coming in at 3-0. Do you have that at all?
Lawn 34, Bremen 21.
So Oak Lawn is 4-0. How about that? What do you make of the Spartans 4-0 now? How about that?
It's one of those things where, you felt like even though they hadn't won a lot of games, that South Suburban Conference that they're in, there's an opportunity there. If you can make some strides, there aren't a lot of teams that I would consider to be head and shoulders above the rest of the league. I think Lamont on one side, Richards on the other are the 2 programs that have kind of maybe established themselves as being perennially good. But the rest of those teams, if you get a little momentum underneath you and get something going, I mean, it's not like you're going to go week to week. You're just going to run into these buzzsaws week after week. You get a little confidence, start to believe in yourself a little bit. There's a lot of comparable teams in that conference. And it tends to be why we get to week 9 and we're looking at a whole bunch of 4-4s. That seems to be what that conference does. 4-4, 5-3s. Bunch of them sitting there all playing each other in week 9, and you're not really sure who's going to win any of those games.
I felt like for years we'd see Argo at 4-4 and go, I don't even know if they'd get in at 5-4 just because of the way their schedule shook out. I felt like it was like every year for a while. So going down to the Lincoln Trail Conference, a couple of 4-0s there. Farmington and Macomb, both 4-0, and Stark County and Wethersfield, both at 4-0. Richland County out of the Little Illini survived at 4-0. Did Casey Westland win tonight? They were coming in at 3-0. Do you have that score?
I do not have
that. Did not see that. East Peoria 4-0. How about that? I did not expect to see East Peoria up the top. 167 points.
Let me tell you about something about East Peoria, though. They've actually done that the last 2 years.
Why is it that I don't pay attention to that?
You know why you haven't noticed that? Because each of the last 2 years they've lost the last 5 games.
That's not good. So who do they have left? Do I dare ask?
You're going to see the same situation that's plagued them the last 2 years. They're very, very backloaded. So yeah.
Here's your 5: Dunlap, Washington, Morton, Metamora, and Pekin. Never mind. But hey, you got the 4. Can you get a 5? I don't know at this point. Now I lost my place to try and scroll through here. Let's see here. Just as we, Dunlap at 4-0, so good for them. Also, the Eagles are rolling along. We had Fremd get that win, 4-0 on the season. So a nice win for Fremd as they continue to roll along here. And what do you make of the Vikings at this point? They're kind of that 8A team that's been quiet in terms of coverage. And is it me because their defense has allowed 31 points this year, and that's probably why?
I think a little bit of it has to do with the fact that, they get into conference play, and typically this has been such a difficult league, like on a week-to-week basis, that now they've gotten through the whole stretch of the non-conference crossovers, and there tended to be some pretty tough games in those. They've gotten through that relatively easily. I mean, they haven't really been pushed so far. That's what leads me to believe that maybe this team is a little bit higher on the food chain than we're used to. Yeah. I mean, I've been consistently kind of banging the drum for this team being a top 10 overall type of team. I still feel really comfortable with that. I really feel like that is where they belong.
Clifton Central got a win over Oakwood tonight. Adam Tomino was there. You and I were kind of talking about that as I was watching that game. Clifton Central pretty much in control in the second half. Want to see how they get there. Let's check in with Adam.
Clifton Central able to pick up a 35-21 homecoming win today over VVC rival Oakwood. Senior quarterback Brady Shule had 4 touchdown passes. The defense buckled down in the second half as the Comets outscored Oakwood 22-7 after halftime. It was a 40-minute weather delay 2 minutes before the half. Led to about an 80-minute stretch where only 2 minutes came off the clock. But Central able to stay focused, come out strong after that, and move to 4-0 on the year.
So they had 2 minutes left in the first half. They had a 40-minute weather delay. Then they had halftime. And who knows, maybe it was homecoming or something like that. You add all that stuff in, and that's a nightmare. That's how kids get hurt, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's just tough to kind of get all these things figured out sometimes. What's the right course of action? How are we going to proceed with those types of games? It's just a really tricky thing to try to maneuver sometimes.
I'm sure they were just trying to get the halftime to make it clean, which is always the best way to do it. But there's sometimes when that wet bulb alarm goes off, you cannot be out there. So, and it's always school safety first. Couple of other, we got a Casey Westfield score of 38-14. Thanks to Matt for that. He's always researching for us. Johnston City 4-0, as we mentioned, their win tonight. Belvedere North and Harlem, they are both 4-0, and I should point out that the schedule makers did it correctly because they play each other week 9. So that could be 2 8-0s going into that one and determining a lot of brackets, at least, in how it's going to shake out at the top of that one. Pecatonica, did they get a win tonight? Because they're coming in at 3-0. I was wondering what they ended up doing this evening.
They were winning comfortably the last I saw. I'm talking about a 30-point gap.
Right.
So, yeah.
And Stockton keeps on rolling at 4-0 on the year. Maroa, Forsyth, and Williamsville both 4-0 as they lead the Sagamo Conference. Just kind of scrolling down here. Vandalia 4-0 to start the year. How about Vandalia? Some kudos to Vandalia for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. That's been a really nice start for them. I think, if I'm not mistaken, they beat Payne a couple weeks ago. That's a good win for them.
Carterville 4-0. Again, just kind of rolling through. You're looking at Oswego East and Oswego both at 4-0 right now. I know Oswego's got Yorkville first, also 4-0. But a scenario where the inner city matchup, they've again since they split 20 years ago plus. There's always been a big and a little in that little inner city rivalry. That could be very interesting to watch if they both go in unbeaten. Yorkville doesn't want to hear it, but I'm just kind of laying it all out here as to how that's going to go if they get together. You had mentioned Sandburg 4-0 as they keep on winning. Bradley Bourbonnais quietly, but maybe not so much now at 4-0, and Lincoln Way West also at 4-0 as well. Monmouth Roseville at 4-0. Sterling Newman Central Catholic 4-0. Clifton Central, as we mentioned, but how about Westville at 4-0? What do you make of Westville and the Tigers?
I think they're really good. I think basically what it comes down to is, whenever Westville and Clifton Central clash together, that's your Vermilion Valley Championship game. I think Westville's a really strong team, when you look at that, and that's down the line a little bit, I think, but yeah, I know that's actually in week 6. I'm looking at it right now, so. Yeah. That'll be here sooner than we realize, but definitely a big game. One game that I was wondering if you've seen a St. Rita St. Francis score from tonight?
I have not seen that. That is a good question. Let's see if we can find that for you real quick here as we wind things down. And, as I'm looking for it, let me ask you what you're looking forward to the most in terms of this Saturday slate. We got a really good slate of Saturday games tomorrow.
Yeah, there are some very interesting ones. The one that kind of peeks off the page at me is I'm looking forward to that Downers Grove North, Glenbard West game. We might have a battle of backup quarterbacks in that one. Mm-hmm. Both of those guys that have been asked to kind of thrust into that role. I saw Glenbard West backup quarterback a couple weeks ago against Joliet Catholic, did a really nice job. But I think those are both two very good football teams, regardless of who they have under center. So that's one that I'm really going to have my eyes on tomorrow.
I do have a St. Francis win over St. Rita tonight. I'm trying to find the score. It was 17-10, the final in that one. So St. Francis, and I'm telling you what, when I watched them against Loyola, I just felt like Loyola was just too big, and it was just a simple class conversation in terms of if it were, it's 8A versus 5A, I should say. I think that St. Francis could be really good and really bother some teams when we get to the postseason for sure. I think they proved that tonight.
Well, I think the other thing that is kind of the underlying topic there, St. Rita is now 1-3.
Ooh.
And they have remaining games, most notably against Nazareth and IC Catholic left on that schedule. So the road to 5 is a little bumpy for St. Rita. So now they're sitting at 1-3. So definitely something to keep an eye on. That was one that I was really interested in seeing the final. I'm not surprised that St. Francis won the game, but still a little bit. A little bit is kind of like, well, that was one of those games that, I think the weight was a little bit more on St. Rita in that one to try to avoid that 1-3 start. St. Francis had a little bit more of that cushion coming into this game 2-1, now 3-1. Pretty good shape for them because there's a couple down the line for them that look like they're pretty substantial favorites in that one. So St. Francis, has put themselves in a nice position for forward.
Last one, and I'll go because Glenbrook South beat Palatine tonight. We didn't mention that at all either. That's a 28-7 win. That's quite the statement for Glenbrook South. Palatine now has to go to Barrington next week in a game they really need to have.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's, after last week where Palatine kind of got it handed to them, makes me wonder if they're fully personnel armed right now.
Yes.
They really got walloped last week, and then this week. I'm not trying to say that Glenbrook South is a bad team.
No, but
that win over York from back week 1. I think this is a pretty good team, and this further proves that. But I'm not quite sure what's going on with Palatine right now.
All right, I will let you continue to sort things out. You and I will chat again on Monday at 9 p.m., and we look forward to sort of sorting through what we've seen over the course of these last couple of hours, and also some of the games that we're going to see tomorrow as well. Soucie, enjoy yourself this evening, and we'll leave you with some highlights from Week 4, live with Friday Night Drive here in Shaw Local.
Jet motion to the right, Carpenter. He's going. He's going.
Your call. Yorkville.
Inline pass complete to number 23, Gavin.
27th meeting between the two teams. Tigers take home a 63-12 victory.
Hi there, just got through the highlights tonight. I was kind of watching them out of the corner of my eyes. I was trying to tack in some more scores. I was able to get quite a few of them in, so we're not chasing a whole bunch of scores tonight. But there are some that I know were going late that I was unable to track down. So, all right. So right now it looks like we're looking for about 100 game scores, which is really, really low for this time of night. A lot of them outside of the Chicagoland area because I was able to get most of those put in tonight. But let me sort this real quick and we'll start at the top. But I was having some problems with one of my scoreboards tonight, so I'm interested to see how much help I can get on some other stuff. So, all right, so now I'm going to start at the top like we always do with the Apollo. I don't have any of these scores right now. Just pulling it together as we see. So, Effingham, 51-35. And I already have one that I need. Let's go with Mattoon and Mount Zion. That's one that I'm looking for. And I'm going to start my list here. I see you've already thrown up a few here. I was not looking at the comments until just now. So there are already a couple that I know that I was needing that are on this list. I'll try to fill those in as we go. So right now, first one on the list is Mattoon and Mount Zion from the Apollo. Thank you, Weather. 35-0 for Mount Zion. So, through that conference on to the Big Northern. So, how good was the Bradley St. Mary's game? It was competitive early, to my understanding. Saw that it was 14-14 at one point in time. Good to know, Weather. I'm going to ask you which ones I need here in a second. What was the Byron final? I never did see that. Is Effingham good? Good question. But they're scoring a lot of points. I'll give them that. So right now I'm looking for the Byron final, the Oregon final. Not too bad, Paul. Didn't get out there tonight. Wilmington kind of took it to Herscher, didn't they? Yeah, I can see that point. I think that Bradley can compete with those two teams, not necessarily because of what St. Mary's is doing. I think St. Mary's is down a little bit from where they were when they were state championship caliber. They had a coaching change, but that's it. It's still a good program, and that's a good win for Bradley. But I think both of those Lincoln Way Central and Lincoln Way West games are going to be really good football games. So into the Big 12 now. Looking for a Champaign Centennial Danville score. Also a Champaign Central Urbana score. I've got the Winnebago score. Thanks, Weather. So right now, Centennial and Danville, Champaign Central, thank you. Centennial and Danville, 14-7. Okay. 6. 31-27. Okay. So now I'm on Peoria Notre Dame and Peoria Richwoods. That's the only one that I need from the Big 12. I just found that one. So that's 42-6 in favor of Notre Dame. So far, so good. On to the Black Diamond. Talked a little bit about Yorkville and Plainfield East. That was another game where it looks like Yorkville played some pretty good defense. That looks like that's going to be a calling card for that team. Plainfield East had to step up in caliber of opponent, and it looks like they are not quite ready to make that transition. Thank you on the Champaign Central score. Okay, so let's go to Edwards County and Flora. Is a Black Diamond score that I'm looking for. And then Fairfield and Cesar. Also looking for that one. Flora wins 34-12. Thank you. Okay. So it's still looking for Fairfield and Cesar out of there. The other game is a Saturday game. Cesar wins 34-22. Okay. All right, on to the Cahokia. Okay. So Redbud over Carlisle. That's 25-20. Okay, looking for 2 out of this conference. We've got Dupo and Westland, and Chester and Sparta. Dupo 20-13. Okay. All right, so I don't have a Chester Sparta score. That is one that I'm missing. I checked all my sources. Don't have that one yet. So I'm going to move on to the next conference, see if anybody else can help me out with that one. But for now, leave that one unaccommodated for. Salem won, Columbia 34-29 over Rochester. Over Roxanne, excuse me. Chester over Sparta. Thank you, weather. Okay, the standalone for the Cahokia, Mississippi is Freeburg and Breeze Central. Looking for that one right now. Breeze wins 49-0. Okay. All right. Now, I'm missing just a couple of Chicago Catholic League scores, and I think I saw someone post the DePaul St. Patrick score. So if someone has that one, I would appreciate it. Thank you, Brian. Thought that's what it was. I couldn't remember. Now, I thought I saw Marian Catholic Leo score earlier, but I'm also showing that might be a Saturday game. So if anybody knows, that is a Saturday game. Okay. I was mistaken. Okay. On to the Central State 8. Okay, I saw it floating around, and I know we talked about it. I know that Glenwood won. What was the Glenwood-Rochester final? Thank you. I'm also looking for a Sacred Heart final from tonight. I know that they won, but I don't remember the score. Sacred Heart U High is right now the only game that I'm looking for so far. It's 42-26. Thank you. Okay. So now we're moving into the Central Suburban. Looking for Niles North and Wheeling. This one might be a little trickier. So Niles North Wheeling is the first one that I think is going to be a little bit of a chase tonight. I'm also looking for Christ the King and St. Edward. Thank you, Weather. So, Christ the King and St. Edward, the lone missing one so far. Also looking for Ottawa, Marquette, and Dwight. Okay, so now we're going into the Chicago Public League. I am missing some of these. Always an adventure. Prosser and Lakeview. Is the first one I'm missing. St. Edward wins 44-14. Thank you, sir. Two wins for St. Edward. Wow. Okay. So that's all done. Now the two games that I'm missing are Ottawa Marquette, Dwight, Prosser, and Lakeview out of the Public League. Thank you, Levi. For Ottawa Marquette. Okay. So it leaves us with Prosser and Lakeview as the only score we're missing. You guys are killing it tonight. Thank you. Just found the other one in the Public League I was looking for. Noble Spear beats Phoenix 21-14. Okay. I have no idea how that conference is going to shake out. Okay. Another one from tonight in the Public League, Corliss and South Shore. So the two scores I'm missing right now, Prosser, Lakeview, Corliss, South Shore. Both out of the Public League. Okay. And it looks like there's going to be one more here. I'm going to check one place. Thank you, Levi. Just found the other one that I was looking for. So Longwood over Military Bronze. South Shore. It's Corliss. All right. So now the only score missing is Prosser and Lakeview from tonight so far. All right. So got one more Public League school to check. Noble Pritzker and Collins. I need that one too. So Prosser and Lakeville, Noble Pritzker and Collins. Those are the two. And we're going to skip all the way down to the heart of Central Illinois Conference. I've got a bunch of the city scores already in. Thank you. Once again, Levi. Okay. Looking for Tri-Valley and Deer Creek Mackinac. And I know who won, but a final on EPG and GCMS. Lansburg, Latham, Shelbyville, 28-8. GCMS, 2, Rally, 38-0. 8. Okay, and one more, Eureka and Ridgeview. Okay, so now I need Eureka and Ridgeview, Central A&M and Madison, out of the heart of Illinois. So 3 games total: Prosser, Lakeview, Eureka, Ridgeview, Central A&M and Madison, as I move down to the Illini Prairie. Six. Madison. Okay, so Eureka Ridgeview, Prosser Lakeview, as I move into the Illini Prairie, and I'm going to add a few here: Paxton, Prairie Central, St. Teresa, Monticello. So there's the Ridgeview score, 5-6. PBL wins 24-14. So that leaves, still need St. Teresa and Monticello in that conference. Monticello 39-20. Thank you. Okay, on to the Illinois Central 8. I think I'm missing Lee Custer and Mantino in that one. I never saw that final. Yep, looking for Mantino and Lee Custer. I know that one got a late start. $26-21 for Mantino. Okay. Okay, so that leaves us still with one game we're hunting. Prosser and Lakeview from the public league as we move into the independent conferences. Or the independent group, it's not really a conference. Marion, my goodness, all talking. Beat up tonight. Okay. Next up is checking that one. Okay. So looking for Mater Dei and Harrisburg. And also Collinsville and Mount Vernon. Mater Dei 52-21. That leaves Collinsville and Mount Vernon on the hunt. Collinsville 28-23. I just found it the same time you guys popped it. Nice job. Collinsville 28-23. I'm going to skip quite a few here because I got a lot of these scores in. Okay. So now we move on to I think the Lincoln Prairie. I need a couple of these. Beating for the record, the only score currently off the board is Prosser and Lakeview. That was 54, Villagore 7. Okay, the missing score from the Lincoln Prairie is Cumberland and Tri-County. The two scores missing, Prosser Lakeview, Cumberland Tri-County. I'm going to add a few more here. Princeville and Elmwood. Huntsville 35 to 14. Knoxville and West Hancock. Abingdon, Monmouth United. Stark County, Rolla. So missing 3 out of the Lincoln Trail. Once again, Knoxville, West Hancock, and there we go with the Abingdon score. Thank you. Stark County 33-0. Okay. All right, so that leaves just West Hancock and Knoxville in that conference. Okay, so leaving Knoxville, West Hancock on the board. Still need Prosser Lakeview from the public league. And then from the Little Illini, I'm looking for Marshall and Richland County. County 7, Marshall 19. Okay, so they're gone. Okay, so I got all the middle line scores, I just have to input them. East Peoria loses to Canton. Mora, 43-40 over Morton. Not much of a heck of a game. Washington over Keegan, 34-7. Okay. So as we move into the Mississippi Valley, the 2 games we're missing, Prosser Lakeview, Knoxville, West Hancock. Canton did win tonight, Paul. Okay, Mississippi Valley scores that I'm missing: Jersey and Highland, and Civic Memorial and Triad. So right now, 4 scores on the board missing. I did not get Knoxville, West Hancock yet, Matt. Forest wins 28-24. It's that one off the board. All right. Okay, need a lot of help in the northern Illinois. Belvedere North, Boylan, Rockford East, Belvedere, Onondaga and Guilford, Jefferson and Harlan. So I basically need everything. Freeport Auburn is tomorrow, so that's going to get changed. It's Jefferson. Really? That's a little surprising. Guilford. Nice win for them. Okay. Rockford East and Belvedere, Belvedere North and Boylan, Civic Memorial and Triad, Jersey and Highland, Knoxville and West Hancock, Prosser and Lakeview. That is the missing list. Okay. It's like we're at 43 games. See, now I see that Highland score. Thank you. Thanks for pointing that out, Levi. I would have totally missed it. Okay. A little over 40 games left to find. Number 45 plates. Okay. On to the Northwest Upstate Illini. So, 49 to nothing. Yes. 621. 21-36. Wins 38 nothing. 52-20 at the time of that. All right. Now we're into the S conferences, moving along nicely. Well, something that I'm going to get into later in the week. I can't answer that question right now, whether, because last night all of the enrollments changed for public schools. Now, some of them only changed a couple of students, but I haven't had a full chance to really look at how far the teams moved on the actual board. So I have a feeling that there's going to be a lot of moving around this week along the bubbles because the enrollments all changed. So that's going to be the impact story of this week, even more so than some of these results, because the enrollments changed, and that's going to get a little bit crazy. So, all right. So, from the Sangamo, I need a Riverton score. No, I'm sorry, not a Riverton score. An Olympia Athens score. Thank you. All right, so touch base on missing scores right now. Knoxville, West Hancock, Prosser, Lakeview, Triad, Civic Memorial, and one of the scores from the Northern Illinois, Rockford, East, and Belvedere. So those are the four right now. Moving through the list really quickly tonight. We are now at 34 missing games statewide. So do the Southern Illinois River to River. Watching a little bit of that Benton DuQuoin game, but I never saw the final. I just got it now. I now need a West Frankfurt Pinckneyville score. Thank you for the Belvedere score. Frankfurt 164.31. Thank you, sir. Okay. So now, on the Ohio. I got you. Thank you, Heather. Carterville wins 42-0. Okay, in need of a Massac County Murfreesboro score. Thank you. Okay. So now moving on to the South Central. I had that one already. Greenville 48-28. Thank you, sir. So that one's in there. Okay. Move down a little bit more here. Amelia 48-0. Western is 48. Farmingville wins 40-17. Let's go to 6 to 8. Okay. Tightening this up some more. Knoxville 35-28. Thank you. All right, so now we're down to just one missing score from the earlier list of games that we've gone through, and that's Prosser and Lakeview. All right, so I need a Cahokia Carbondale score. Very good. Which means 13-14, nothing. Princeton. On to the Southwestern. Okay. It's about 20 games right now. Okay, I need 2 from the Southwestern. I need an East St. Louis final. I know they won. Just don't remember. I did not record the final over Alton. And a Belleville East Edwardsville score. If that's the way it plays out, I would guess 6-7. 60-6 on East St. Louis. Thank you, Brian. I saw that you posted it earlier. I just couldn't remember it in the chaos of the show. Thanks again. So Edwardsville, Belleville West, Lakeview, and Prosser. Oh, there's the Prosser score. Yes. Excellent. Belleville East. Edwardsville, 48-30. Okay. So far I have everything in as we move into the Three Rivers Conference. So all over Chouard, 18-15. Okay, I know Princeton won, but I need a Princeton-Kewanee final. I also need a Mendota-Monmouth final. You need some more out of the Three Rivers. I need Rock Ridge. I also need Newman Central Catholic. So 63-7 for Princeton. Rockridge wins 29-12. Newman 40-14. Anybody got that Mendota Monmouth score? $42.21. Okay. All right, I'm looking for an Elgin Larkin East Aurora score. Okay. So 9 games left. Need a couple out of the Vermilion Valley. I know that Clifton Central won, but I need a final over Oakwood. Georgetown Ridge Farm in Westville. And yeah, that's it out of that conference. $5.21 for Central. Westville 72 to 14. Lots of big numbers now. Okay, so right now the only score I'm missing is Elgin, Larkin, and East Aurora. I have 3 conferences left. Seven. Let's see, 53.6. I also need a Galesburg Rock Island Alleman score. I know Galesburg was winning by a lot, but I don't have a final. $54.22. Thank you. All right, down to the last pack here, guys. Really moving along quickly tonight. Thank you for all your help. Much appreciated. Okay, need a lot of Western Illinois Valley help. Yeah, I agree, Weather. This is usually when it gets pretty telling. Okay, so I need Triopia and Jacksonville route. I need Carrollton and West Central. I think Geneva's a 6 right now. Greenfield and Pleasant Hill. The Triopia route, Carrollton, West Central, Greenfield, Pleasant Hill, along with East Aurora and Larkin. Carrollton wins 15-12. $43-6. And Triopia route is the last one that I'm looking for. Thank you. So Triopia over route 26-7. That leaves Larkin and East Aurora as the only game on the board from Friday that I cannot find. Thank you, everyone, for your help. But real quick, let's do a little check here while we can. On Friday night, wow, this shocks me. 66 teams have reached 4-0. That number is much lower than I thought it would be. And there are only 6 3-0s playing tomorrow. So that is pretty shocking when it comes right down to it. 66 teams at 4-0, 6 more trying to join them tomorrow. 2 of those 6 are playing one another. So that's pretty crazy. We have this is an interesting one too. I'm counting down here. We currently have 303 teams at 500 or better. Romeoville lost by a lot. That was, I'll see if I can find it real quick for you, really. Oh, we're usually around 80 or 90 through 4 weeks, so that's crazy. 49-0, Plainfield North over Romeoville. So, like I said, this is pretty interesting. We've got a lot of teams at the 500 mark, but and we've got a lot of teams in the 3-win group. So that's the 3-1 group is very large. So that's pretty telling too. So we've got 112 that are already at 3-1, and then maybe at 10 more, 15 more that can join that group. So that's massive. The 3-win group is gigantic. Yep, I was wondering about that, Levi. I knew that it was lopsided. I didn't realize it was that lopsided. So, all right, guys, that wraps her up for tonight. I'll probably put some information out there tomorrow night on Twitter, letting people know how the Saturday broke down. But thanks so much for your help. It's really appreciated. I think next week, after we finish the scores, I will try to take a kind of a snapshot on what I think the lines might be, talk about it a little bit more, especially if we start getting it done as early as we have been, because this is remarkably early. So appreciate your help. Everybody have a good night. Thanks.